Well, we had another day in Parliament yesterday here in Budapest, and another day, I would say, of fireworks, of aggression, of vitriol. And it all started, like every day in Parliament seems to start, with a long speech given by Peter Magyar. He likes the sound of his own voice, that much is clear. He started off by reading from the Litany of Sins by the author Fidesz, of what Fidesz did and the enormous financial black hole that they left and created, either by handing out dodgy loans or by grift or by theft. I mean, his accusations are quite brutal, so it's probably a good thing there is parliamentary immunity, because I think were there no parliamentary immunity, I think some people would be suing him. But anyway, so he listed off a bunch of projects that were given funding by the Hungarian government. So a project in Africa, a project in Egypt, I know that's Africa too, but you know what I mean, a loan in North Macedonia. These are all for lots of money, so 100 billion forints plus each, which actually puts into context the 17 billion forints that have been sort of mislaid or misused to do with the National Cultural Fund. That is effectively a drop in the ocean. He added up all the figures during his talk, and he said it was 1,300 billion forints, so 1,300 billion forints that Fidesz misused, did not apply to the Hungarian people. At the same time, he also listed off some of the successes. So a long list of successes about stuff including bringing the EU money home, but he highlighted three things that he's really proud of. First was to do with prescription medicine and taxes on prescription medicine, which is now zero. So he says this is going to save loads of people loads of money. I don't think that's true. He also said another success story is that they've pushed through that kids from difficult homes and difficult surroundings are going to be able to get 100,000 forints to help start their school year, because when the school year comes around and parents need to invest in school materials and shoes and clothes and whatever else you need for school, that they're going to be able to do so, and this is really going to help a lot of people. I'm not quite sure that's accurate. And finally, he mentioned firewood, which might seem a little bit of a funny issue if you're in Western Europe, but you should know that firewood is still used in the countryside, because not every town, or in fact village, in my close family, so my wife's family, she has relatives who live 20 kilometers away from Budapest in a commuter town. They could be connected to the gas grid. They choose not to be. And they choose not to be because for them firewood is a far cheaper option. And they already have their home set up for firewood. They've done it this way for years. They actually enjoy doing it. I'm not quite sure how much of a big thing this is, but he touted these as these three big successes for the Tisza government. Now, there was also debate about the new head of the Constitutional Court. Their candidate, Tisza's candidate, was voted in at the end of proceedings by obviously a clear majority. Tisza doesn't need the help of any other political party in the parliament to do anything. They have a supermajority. They can do anything and everything. And in fact, when they took the vote, the Fidesz opposition weren't even there. And they weren't even there because the previous Minister of Culture had attempted to say something in response to comments by Peter Magyar, and he had his microphone turned off because, you're not allowed to talk now, it seems. And this is also funny because even though the YouTube coverage of the Hungarian Parliament tries not to show what is happening with our Prime Minister Peter Magyar from different angles, in the afternoon and the evening sometimes you can see it. I'm sure on YouTube, if you look, you can find highlights of this. You will see that whenever an opposition politician gets up and is speaking about how they don't agree with what Tisza is doing, Peter Magyar is constantly bad-mouthing them. He's saying, no, you're lying, this is bollocks, why are you lying to the Hungarian people? Effectively, you suck. I mean, he's super aggressive. He has a big chip on his shoulder, specifically to do with Fidesz. He dislikes them intensely. I think actually dislike is a weak term. But there were some things, though, that the opposition people said that are cause for alarm, I think. So, about one of the things about the firewood and about the saving people lots of money on prescriptions. So, Rétvári Bence, who is the head of the Christian Democrats, I seem to like him more and more actually, even though he has effectively no support. Less than 1%, I'd say, in Hungary are Christian Democrats officially. So he was saying that, well, yeah, you're talking about how these prescription charges, the tax breaks are going to really, really help people, but we're talking about 70, 80, 100 forints each time. So maybe 1,000 forints saving every month, and that's nothing. And then he listed that the previous Fidesz government had slashed heart medicine by 50%, let's say, and that was a real saving, whereas this is a minuscule saving that doesn't affect many people. And this is actually where I'm starting to have an issue with the Tisza government, because I feel as though these big things that they're talking about, they're all things that affect other people. So, okay, so it's wonderful that the Tisza government is going to give 100,000 forints to children starting their school year from broken homes, children who from one-parent families whose parent is not working, children in orphanages. Okay, amazing, but this is a tiny amount of people. My wife was saying yesterday, okay, that's great, but what about the rest of us? Our children are expensive too. Why don't we get anything? And I think the same way with the zero tax on prescription medicine. Again, okay, great. So you're helping the odd grandmother here or there who has a high medicine bill. But, we're not America. We are not a pill-popping nation. We're not a country where if you walk into the bathroom and you check the medicine cabinet, it's full of little bottles with prescriptions. That's not us. That's America. Prescriptions are hard to get. You don't just walk into a doctor's office and get one. I mean, you can try, but they'll probably tell you to leave. Doctor shopping is not something you can do here, just in the hope that you're going to get opioids. It's just not going to happen. So, and with the firewood as well, and those figures are about right. That's 1.2 million people, and of those 2 million children, and of those there are 400,000 kids who might qualify for this. Will they all get it? No. Will it be much? Will there be far fewer kids who get this than they say? 100% sure. So I'm starting to be a little bit worried that the issues that Tisza are talking about are all going to be effectively, it's the socialist toolbox of doing things that only help others. So you feel good because you say, well, yeah, it's great because we're helping kids who have nothing, and that's a good thing to do. No one can claim otherwise. But it's always about other people. My wife and other people in our school. There's a lady in our school. She's raising her son as a single mother, but she works. Her partner works. Do they qualify? No. Should they qualify? Yes. Should they get something? Absolutely. Will they? No, they won't. Another thing that Bence Rétvári of the Christian Democrats brought up, and this is important. So this is a really big issue. So he said, okay, it's wonderful that you're doing all this sort of stuff, prescription medicine, which you say is going to save a bunch of people a bunch of money. Not true. But the Hungarian government, the Tisza government, has allowed banks, and I think it's from the end of September, the freeze on mortgage interest rate rises goes away. So that freeze has been in place since 2022. That freeze is going to go away. And he said that just by the amount that banks will raise their mortgages, because as soon as banks can make more money, banks will make more money. Banks are not nice philanthropic organizations. They are there to extract wealth. And that's how they work. The reason why banks have big fuck-off buildings everywhere is not because they're good with money, but because they're good at getting money. Bence Rétvári said that the end of this moratorium on interest rate rises to do with mortgages is going to cost Hungarians between 450 billion and 500 billion forints over the next year. And when he said that, the reaction on Peter Magyar's face was massive anger. So it was like, no, how dare you say it? You're lying. That's not true. And of course it's not true, because it hasn't happened. But the rise is coming. And will that rise that Hungarians pay for their mortgages, which is something you must pay, will that offset these little things? You know it will. Will it be orders of magnitude more expensive for them? Yes, it will. So we have problems. And the problem here is that Tisza, and they were accused of being a globalist government. They were accused of being a government that is helping and abetting and aiding multinationals. And by doing this with the banking sector, they are absolutely that. It's clear that things aren't going to be so nice for the Hungarian consumer. And just one last footnote. While it's wonderful that they're doing this thing with prescription medicine and they're lowering the taxes on firewood, the Hungarian consumer, we need lower food prices. We need to ensure that our energy prices stay low. But we need lower food. Our food prices are out of control. Out of control. The percentage of your budget that goes on food in Hungary as a Hungarian is very high, and it's going up and up. And so far, I see no reaction from the Tisza government to do anything about that. And food is the one thing, or one of those things, that everyone in Hungary needs. Everyone in Hungary would profit if the Tisza government decided to take action on food prices. Have they done so? They haven't. Will they do so? I doubt it. But again, I hope I'm wrong. Another interesting thing that happened that was covered by a few newspapers and a few media outlets before they changed their headlines was that at some point during the proceedings, when Fidesz left, the Prime Minister, Peter Magyar, he walked over to the opposition bench and he took away the notes from one of the politicians that he'd left on his desk, which is not really cool. Does it really matter at the end of the day? No, of course it doesn't. These are notes, whatever. But the act of going and sort of invading someone's space and taking away their stuff when they're not there somehow isn't good. And when one media outlet covered it and said, they look at this, he's gone over there and he's stolen these papers, they had to change their headline because they were, I think, probably contacted by the Prime Minister's office saying, how dare you write that headline? Change it, okay? So they changed the headline. I saw some, of course, very angry, very anti-Tisza websites. They were saying, well, what do you expect from a prime minister that steals young girls' telephones in nightclubs? And this, of course, comes from a story when he was running for office and he was out celebrating and he was dancing and probably acting like a dick on the dance floor. There's nothing wrong with that if you're a normal person. If you're a prime minister or a prime minister-elect, want to be prime minister, it's not the most ideal, reassuring thing to see that your prime minister is acting like a dick on the dance floor. And then some girl was taking a video of him, and he went over there, took the phone, and then just effectively stole it. And there was a story about that. But anyway, on these websites, they were referring to that story with this event again. But again, it's not really a big deal, but still interesting that in Parliament, which is a beautiful building on the outside and on the inside, the sense of decorum seems to be completely lost and completely gone. And we are in an era of anger, of accusations, of honestly open hatred. And I don't like it so much. If you like my stuff, give me a like, give me a follow. Thanks again.